are not believers, and you might just be like, oh, now this is turning into a God story. Well, I hope it's a seed, because I am living proof. If there was no God, I would not be sitting right here today. Just putting that out there, because I've been through some troubling times and made some horrible mistakes.
Absolutely.
And
we all have.
For some reason, hint, maybe to get out to other people, God left me here because he believed in me enough to put an impact on people. And I'm going to be completely honest, this is the first show that I've actually focused completely on God. And I'm not ashamed. I hope people get this message. Yeah. And even if it's just a seed, just take it in and give it a try, because what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose?
Absolutely
by giving God a chance?
And if people are on the fence and if you're sitting there and people are on the fence and they're saying, oh, well, I've heard several times that she said something just came into my head, or I just heard this in my spirit. You don't get to that place by just coincidence. You have to have, as Madelyn talked about, that relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And I had to kind of research and say, how do you know if it's God, or how do you know if it's you? How is he directing me? But there are several ways that you can do that. And one of them is by, if something just kind of flies into your head, you weren't thinking about it, it's just random, but yet you have to ask God and pray for him to speak with you and talk with you, because we do have the Holy Spirit within us.
I want to admit something really quickly. My brother-in-law is devoted Christian. My whole life growing up, he was, God. And God told me this, and God told me that. And I'm not going to lie, I was like, he is crazy.
Right.
You can't see God. You can't talk. God doesn't talk to you. So whenever I did come back to God, I prayed to him. I said, okay, God, I don't understand this. You're not answering me.
Right.
But, and then I started asking him questions and praying, and I promise, I have no reason to lie, I would ask him a question. I'm not going to get into details of the questions right now, but I'd ask him a question, and then a couple of days later, I'd open the Bible and just say, okay, God, what do you want to tell me today? Flip it open, and how about there was my answer.
Wow. This woman approached us when she had heard about what we were doing and said, I know someone who I need to introduce you to. Can I please have your card? And we were like, sure. And then she told us a little more. She's like, my friend has an internet television show, and she's got a good following, and she, talks about her faith. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Because it's crazy, even as a Christian, you sometimes you question, like, that was just too easy. And some days it's not easy.
Yeah.
Like, I'll put that out there. Like,
it's not.
Lisa and I personally have our struggles and insecurities about writing this book. We all have insecurities. I have a lot of insecurities that I mask really well. And I'm a writer. God gave me the gift of words, and so that's what I'm supposed to do. But we were having opposition, and we were working really hard on this book. And I sat at home, and we have this recliner. My husband and I have a recliner in our living room, and I just sat in it one night, and I was under a blanket. I had some tea, and I was just feeling really, really low. And I was just like, God, I feel so faithless right now. I need a sign. Creator of the universe, my faith is so weak that I need you to give me a sign to prove how faithful you are, right? And it's like a total moment of weakness, and just God is like, ha ha ha, child, you're so funny. And so the next day, I didn't even pray specifically for an answer. I just prayed to know that we were on the right path, that we were doing the right thing, that we should continue on what we were doing. And that day we happened to meet in the public library. We normally meet here at Lisa's house. We met at the public library. We were in a study room, and all of a sudden we're talking, we get an email, we look at it, we're talking about it, and then it's like, boom, there's my answer. I ugly cried in the library. Like,
give us the ugly cry. Can we please see the ugly cry?
We all have our ugly cry. Not on the first meeting, my friend.
We all have our ugly cry. Wait.
So we were in the public library in a study room, and here comes the sign, and I have tears.
By an email. Yeah.
And I am just losing it. Okay. In the library, okay? Red hot mess. Flaming red hot mess.
Oh my God.
And so it was like, God, well, he's always faithful. We're the ones that are weak and
walk
will
away.
walk away. But if we just walk in obedience, just, it took me, I'm 32, and I'm not going to lie. I've been writing my whole life. I'm a librarian. I read all the time. Voracious reader. I thought words were fun, and I loved them, but it wasn't until 8 or 9 months ago, probably about the time that we started working on this book, that I realized, no, that's where I'm supposed to be walking in obedience. And the struggles that I was having were coming from the opposition as I was finding that the writing is what I'm supposed to be doing. And now it's like I'm operating in obedience, and I feel more confidence than I did when I ugly cried in the library. I feel like we're on the right path. And I also, in general, my relationship with God is growing. It's evolving every single day. And some days it's like 1 step forward, 8 steps back. But as you move forward, you find this is what I'm supposed to be operating in. And I'm sure you have felt that way.
Yeah, when you said 8 steps back into the, it's the same thing. I do it all the time, because I think, everything today is great, everything's gonna fall, and then you start falling back, and then you'll get this message from some whoever, and it's an eye opener. It's it does. It validates what I'm doing, and it's like, okay, God, what am I doing? And I'll just, you know how they say you pray from your heart. You don't always have to pray out loud. And I do that a lot, because
all day.
It's just, and then you find out, you're like, okay, well, this message was not a coincidence. It wasn't, somebody didn't just coincidentally know I just have God. Am I moving in the right direction? Right. Just saying, hey, you helped me by X, Y, Z.
And when you talk about spiritual warfare, you understand that you're doing the right thing because you're meeting spiritual warfare. And just to give you an example, we were seeking some help from a professional about marketing, someone who had written some books, and I went to have a meeting with him, and I was telling him the idea about we're doing Tell Your God story, but the reason we're here actually even today is seeking stories. We need for you to share your stories. So I was talking to this gentleman and saying, how can we market this? How can we go out and get people to kind of share the stories? And before he even said anything, he's like, well, there's a million books out there like this. This was his advice to me, someone I went to, and I said, well, but I felt such a peace come over me, and I kind of instantly had the words placed in my mouth. But there's not this book,
right? And
there's not this story,
right?
And we're praying that this is an assignment from God, so this is in God's hands. So wherever God wants us to go, we're hoping that God is thinking big on this. So. At that point, though, when I walked away and I talked to Madelyn, I'm like, wow, we're heading in the right direction, because the devil is definitely all over this.
All over it.
And he doesn't want it to happen.
And someone said, because a lot of people, they don't know, I've been, like I told you, doing this for the last 7 months, out of my own pocket. I'm just now to the point where I'm looking for sponsors and things. Yes. I've been doing this, and people, particularly, I won't put out names, same thing. What are you doing? That's not a real job. Da, da, da. Hey, when I go, I know where I want to go.
Yeah.
So this is a job. You know what I mean? This is a job, and I'm working for God, and I'm trying to show people that, and maybe my story will be one of your anonymous stories, but you'll see that this isn't where it ends, and I know that firsthand, because you never know when there's tomorrow. Not guaranteed. Tomorrow, it's not guaranteed. With me losing my husband, that showed me whoa, A, I got to get to where he's at. Yeah. B, the only way I'm going to get there is to become selfless and try to help others and kind of clean up my past by giving instead of taking. I'm going to start giving back, and you can
absolutely clean up your past and start. With
all you have to do is ask for forgiveness.
That's all you have to do. A brand new day with God, and He knows your heart, and He knows your past, and He knows if you're sincere. And you just have to ask Him for forgiveness.
And there's nothing that you've done that God can't forgive. No matter what you've been through or what you've done, there's not one thing that you've done that His work on the cross can't forgive or redeem.
He gives you unconditional love.
And I spent a lot of years in that darkness where I thought there's no possible way that God could love me. I'm just not good enough. I'm not doing the right things. I'm not who He wants me to be, and so I have no hope. And so when I came back to God, it was like I realized there's nothing, no matter how bad of a, and some days, I mean, it's not an easy walk. I have to remember every day.
Every day, yeah.
But there's nothing. And I also had a Bible study teacher tell me this once. She was like, you know, I can't prove that heaven exists, and I can't prove that heaven doesn't exist, but I would rather do what I'm called to do and serve this God that I believe in and get to the end of the road and find out that he does exist than just do whatever and get there and realize I didn't do what he wanted me to do, and now I'm going somewhere I don't want to go for all eternity. You know, like if this is what wrong is, then I don't want to be right. I want to be where God is. I don't want to make the, you know, and so it's like, you know, you just have to operate in that obedience and get past the fear.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question. What is your long-term goal with your book? I mean, I know you have your book, you're writing your book. When is that going to be ready? Do you know, or is it going to take a couple of years?
We've been talking to a publisher who really is interested in taking our book on to publish. So we are hoping to get the manuscript to him by the end of November. That's not a hard date.
He gave it to us as a deadline, but it wasn't a hard deadline, but I think we're trying to stick to it as much as possible. But we've also had a lot of life spoken over this project in format. It's a lot like the Chicken Soup for the Soul series that's already out there. But in content, it's completely different. And we've had a few people say, well, I see this becoming a series, and I absolutely receive that, because we know that, you know, we're struggling a little bit right now, and we're out there, you know, oh, we know you have a story. We would love for you to share it with us. Mm-hmm. We know that this is the hardest part, getting the stories for the first book. But once this is published and it gets out there and people start seeing it and reading it, I firmly believe that this is going to be something so much bigger than we could ever hope or dream for. And so I hope this becomes a series. I hope that this continues on for another decade,
because that's more and more and more people that you're reaching out to.
Yes.
And then if we could reach out to you know, it frustrates me sometimes, and I know I'm not supposed to let it, but it frustrates me because it's like I will tell someone the things that I've been through and how I've overcome and who helped me overcome it, but they just look at me like I'm crazy and they don't want to listen. And it's like I just want to shake them and be like, would you please listen to me before it's too late? Yeah. You know what I mean? But I know you can't do that. You can only lead by example. And this is perfect.
The thing with the book too is that you don't have to be face to face sharing your story with someone. That if somebody chooses in the privacy of their own home to try to read your story and read it through, and as we're working on this, I have had several things revealed to me why we need to do this, why God really wants us to do this. Because Samantha, when you share your story, you're sharing it one-on-one, just with me. I'm the only ears that are hearing it. And as Madelyn said earlier with Brian's story, I originally heard Brian's story, and as I'm hearing it and as he's telling this to me, God is kind of whispering, we need to share this. It needs to be heard by more ears than just yours. So that's number one. By putting your story in our book, it'll be shared. Right. Number two is we need to preserve the stories, because when you go, your story goes. Mm-hmm. So wouldn't you love to leave that legacy for your family too, and for others? So the second reason is to preserve, and then of course the third is we want to change hearts for God. We want to, especially people that are sitting on the fence that say, yeah, I'm not sure, is this really God or not God? So that's why we want to put the stories out there, very in a non-threatening way. Somebody to pick up the book, read the stories, and say, wow, there really must be something to this, you know? Maybe there is God. Maybe I want to investigate and I want to get to know him a little.